Before we begin, thank you very much to Panda T01 for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you for helping to keep the channel going. I'll keep the shout out brief today because, one, I don't have a whole lot to announce, and two, these TJbletops tend to be long and not a lot of people watch them. So let's go ahead and get right into it with the topic of the day. So I try to do these rarely because while I love D&D and I love talking D&D, I'm aware they are not the most popular things on my channel. I promise we'll get back to Transformers, tomorrow. But I just need a break today and we need to discuss something. So last week we finished off a 2+ year campaign, and again, I have a character who made it from the start of a game, which I think this one was level 3, all the way to level 20. And in fact, this character actually went beyond level 20. We will explain that in a minute. But for now, we're going to go over my latest character to finish and survive an entire campaign, and that is Renard, my Tiefling Ranger. Now, I understand, if you will play D&D, Tiefling Ranger is going to sound weird to you because Rangers need dex, and when you play D&D, the race that you pick determines some bonus stats that you get to start the game. With Tieflings, it's charisma, not dex. If you want to optimize your archer here, you need someone that's going to have dex-based bonuses. So it was a little odd. It does make for an interesting character. Is one thing I tell people, don't worry about optimizing your character, just do whatever sounds fun and whatever you want to do. In this case, my girlfriend wanted me to make a tiefling, so I made a tiefling. Okay, so that's basically how that breaks down. What you're looking at is Renard in his original outfit, the way that he looked when he started the campaign at level 3. And we move into things like this. He's got a little bit more armor on him. He looks a little bit more rugged now. And you'll notice there's a small dragon on his forearm. So Renard, the backstory, if you hadn't seen any of the previous videos, was he was found by an assassin woman. We didn't know she was an assassin at the time, later on. But, the story's over, so now I can spill all the backstory stuff. He was discovered by an elf woman named Chien, who was a trained assassin. She was a very powerful ranger herself. And she took in Renard almost in penance for the things that she had done during her time as part of a League of Shadows kind of situation. So she ends up taking him in. Now, at this point, Renard is like young adult size. He just literally, when he woke up, he had no memory of his past. He's fully grown adult. He doesn't speak common, which means he doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak anything. All he knows is that there's a dead bard beside him in very colorful clothes that he is very sad about, and that's it. So he is found very quickly and taken in by Chien, our assassin, and slowly trained in the ways of being a hunter himself. It's a very slow process. There are moments where he kind of goes a little feral and gets out and starts raiding the local places for food or whatever is shiny. But eventually he does start to grow and learn. And because he is dealing with an elven woman raising him, his first language is Elvish. He does not speak common. In fact, by the time we start the campaign, his common is growing, but it's very broken. He talks like a caveman. Renard want to fight too. It's very deliberate words. There's no saying the word I. And generally saying the characters' names rather than saying you or them. It was fun to play with a verbal tick. The fun of it was when he switches to Elven and he starts speaking very eloquently, because speaking broken common, he does sound dumb, but he's not. He is not a dumb character by any stretch. When he switches to Elven, he's a lot more confident in how he speaks, and he's a lot more clear with his intention. So it was a fun verbal tick to include because it made people aware of what language he was speaking simply by how I was performing him. That was fun. Now, eventually he does grow out of that. Eventually he does learn enough common to be comfortable talking that as well. So, character growth and all that. But I had fun swapping in and out. Blaze we pick up along the way. DM rolls for a random encounter on a boat. Just so happens to be a pseudo dragon that's kind of raiding the captain's quarters. I will admit, I know dragons. So when one of the party members offers food to try and lure the dragon, he gets nothing out of it. But he said, but we hear the captain shouting about this guy trying to get into his coin purse. So I offer coin, I offer gold, and the dragon forms a bond with me. So the dragon becomes Blaze, and Blaze is convinced he's an actual dragon. Blaze turned out to be so efficient at what he did that we eventually gave him this miniature. We never used this on the table because it's just silly. But he was like shockingly good. So a pseudo dragon can poison with a sting of their tail, and it's a knockout poison. And Blaze knocked out people all the time. The DC for it is actually pretty low. It's like a 13, which if you don't play D&D, that's not a hard roll to make. Unless your stats for Constitution are terrible, which they shouldn't be. It's your health in the game. But this was like shocking. We literally had encounters where Blaze had more downs than anyone else in the party. It was kind of hilarious. To the point where, Blaze, everyone respected Blaze. Blaze was battle hungry, but also very, on occasion aware that there were much bigger dragons than he. We eventually got him some armor that was enchanted to actually allow him to cast Enlarge on himself, and he could stack the enlarges all at once because it was done by charges in the armor, not necessarily magic slots, which meant he could grow to the size of a dragon, but still kind of doofy looking because he's just a really big pseudo dragon. We felt bad. Like in the final battle, he got stunned pretty early on, so he didn't really get to show what he could do at full dragon size. It felt terrible. But no, Blaze was fun. Blaze was a fun ball of mischief. He had a sack that he always kind of rode around in on the side of Renard's hip, and the sack was called a bag of tricks, which meant he could pull a fluff ball out of it and throw it, and it would turn into an animal. But because Blaze is the one doing it, the animal's under his control, not mine. So, in this super weird situation of, like, a Pokemon has Pokemon, I would give a command to Blaze. Blaze would give the command to the animal. So, it was a fun little dichotomy. We eventually added, like, there was a gag for a while that Renard just had this, like, menagerie. And eventually he gained the ability to summon either a unicorn or a Clawaddle, which are like celestial creatures. So he could get in on it too. So there's a little bit of Pokemon encounter to Renard and Blaze as well. The other cool part about Renard was he wasn't just built, he was built different. I built Renard specifically because I wanted to show that a ranger could also be viable. So what happened was I took him as a Gloomstalker Ranger, which is already known to be a stronger type of attacking ranger. They get a lot of bonuses on the first turn, extra movement, 1 extra attack, etc. I mixed in 3 levels of fighter because when you do that, not only do you crit on a 19 as well as a 20, which means double the crit chance, you also get to have an extra 10 feet of movement on the first turn. No. That's the Gloomstalker thing. No. I'm getting this character was so stacked. I get this backwards a little bit. No, it gives him what's called an action surge, which basically means you can have 1 extra action during your turn than you would normally get. The way he is built, Gloomstalker Rangers have an extra attack on turn 1 called Dread Ambush that you can activate on the first turn. Doesn't mention anything about once a day, once per short rest, anything like that. All it says is if you take the attack action on turn 1, then you can use the Dread Ambush shot. Using an action surge meant I could use 2 actions to attack. I have 2 attack actions, which means I can fire Dread Ambush twice. So that means that at level 7, level 8, it was level 8 where I pulled this off. At level 8, Renard could fire 6 attacks on the first turn. And I really feel like that kind of swayed a lot of our battle encounters, because we'd run up against bosses who are just huge sacks of HP. Or one trick the DM kept using is that it took a turn for the actual boss to make it onto the field. So instead of just doing huge damage to the big bad of the encounter, I would basically just be doing crowd control instead, which is also fine. You know, damage is damage, whoever I put it on. But oh my god, it became a defining trait of the campaign and the group, of like everyone kind of leaning on Renard's level of damage output. Renard grows. So what we find out about Renard is that originally he was not a tiefling. He was a fox. Now, I threw this in as something for the players to discover. I thought, like, let's leave a mystery for them to figure out, you know, and then I get a mystery of my own character, like, why was he turned, you know, why did he used to be a fox? Why does he have enemies after him now? Why was he turned into a tiefling, etc.? So, as it turns out, the fox is actually a fey fox. So there was a backstory the DM created around the country of Valinar. Valinar is from Eberron, and the setting is Valinar is kind of a desert locale. So you think it's like there's a lot of Arabic vibes to its fashion, to its design, etc. But it's a warrior nation. There's a lot of combatants in there, and it's a place where, like, even though there's a large majority of elven population there, but because Renard used to be one of these, like, special foxes, he was treated like he was brethren. He was treated like he was of Valinar, which also led to his what became his primary design, which was this, which I really thought was a really cool look for the character. I like doing a new design, a new mini for my character every 4 or 5 levels, or whenever it feels appropriate. So there's a lot of different shapes and designs to Renard. At this point in the game, trick arrows became a thing for him. Any town that seemed like it was a little bit more than just like a backwater village, he would go and see if they were crafting any special arrows. You know, either from a Fletcher or a magic shop. So he had shock arrows, freeze arrows, poison arrows, fire arrows, explosive arrows. We joked about him being the Green Arrow. Yeah, look at him. It got to the point where, like, I had to get a quiver that was specifically designed to hold a ton of arrows in different pockets, just so I could pull them out, whichever ones I need at the time. And the joke of it, I wish I had the screenshot ready. The joke of it was, on my side of the board, on our little digital tabletop, I had like 12 counters all going down, because I had to keep track of all the different arrows I had in stock, all the arrows that I had in my bag of holding, different abilities I had. I had like the action surge to make sure I was counting that. I had superiority dice, those had to be kept track of. I had spell slots to keep track of. I had tricks that the bow that I was using at this point had enchantments. I had to keep track of being able to use those. So it was just tons of counters on my side of the board to make sure I kept track of all of this all at once. And it just became, like, laughable. It became funny laughable, but laughable nonetheless. So, as it turns out, Renard was not a standard fox. He was actually a fey fox, which meant he came with special abilities that were awakened once he reunited with his little fox family. Which gave him some fey abilities, and he is technically classified as a fey creature now. So as it turns out, the Foxes of Valinor were actually originally druids who fought in this great war that happened in the setting of Eberron. In order to facilitate certain goals or tasks, many of these ancient druids volunteered themselves to take on these new forms in order to in order to assist the greater good, and ended up getting stuck that way. So there's a thing about Renard going from being a Fey Fox to this form that actually gives them hope of actually becoming, regaining their natural forms again. So that we didn't actually get to explore. The way that the finale was set up was actually to give everyone like a feeling of like the adventure continues, and like these characters are still going to have stuff to do on their own even after the party disbands and the big bad's defeated. So that was kind of mine. It was discover like how to actually undo this curse, and restore, properly restore the Renard's people. So that was kind of, it's kind of an interesting take. It's kind of, I like the adventure continues type. So like I said, like the fox thing was for the party to discover. That was their mystery. I knew that going in. I baked that in with the DM. What I didn't know was, why was Renard important? Why did he have enemies following him? Why was he turned into a fox in the first place? So as it turns out, he had a relic in him that was called the Prismatic Matrix. I know, the Transformer fans D&D character had a matrix in him. Hold off. Gets worse. This matrix was part of another device that, when the two were combined, created a creature called Primus. Stop. The party decided the name of the creature. This was incidental. I don't even think the guy who spouted the name was a Transformer guy to know that. But point being, so it's essentially the two together creates this incredibly powerful creature. That's what the enemies chasing Renard were after. They wanted that power for themselves, and because it was completely, they got a bit of it in them, and that completely corrupted them. Eventually, this is what powered the soul of what it was essentially a gigantic mech that we stormed the final base with, to in order to combat our final boss. Okay, so few things we're going to cover here. For starters, let me go ahead and switch over to Hero Forge just so you can see Renard's final form. So at this point, he is level 20 plus, or level 20 EX, I think the DM called it. Basically, once we hit a certain point of XP after 20, he let everyone take one more ability score improvement that could go up to 22. And he also allowed us to do 2 new feats. So a little bit of a boost just to overpower our characters before the final fight. So Renard here, who is currently in, this is how he finished off the campaign, as a Royal Guard of Valinor, as well as holding the title of Apex Hunter. So, basically top hunter in the land. Yeah. He kind of deserved that, not gonna lie. So you remember how I said that his power, I designed him to be powerful. Like, remember, like the first time we talked about Renard, I described him in the title of the video as the most dangerous ranger. I am confident he's one of the most powerful rangers that you're gonna find in D&D. I'm sure there's ways of stacking ones bigger than this, but it's good luck. So, on top of the fact that Renard had ridiculous shots because his dex was 22, and he had a bunch of bonuses on top of that. The bow is an oath bow. Oath bows allow you to target a creature and get 3d6 extra damage, attack, and advantage on every attack. It's a ridiculous amount of added damage to a character who's already has a ridiculous amount of damage output. You tie in some extra boosts, some enchantment from the party, and what you got was, during the final battle, I actually set my all-time damage record with this character. You want to take a guess? Now remember, we told a story previously on TJbletop where a big combination of tricks allowed me to do 190 damage in one turn, and that was as a druid. And that was a lot of planning, a lot of like mixing abilities and items in order to pull that trick off. This was just raw power and from a powered up character that was specifically designed to be broken. After 6 shots, Renard's total damage against the final boss on turn 1 was 320. That's what'll happen when you get that many buffs before you attack, and you get 3 crits, including both of the Dread Ambushes. The Dice Gods knew this was Renard's last hurrah, and thus allowed me to play. Yeah, so the best part about that, the 2 crits for the Dread Ambush, I was rolling 14 dice to figure out the damage output for those shots. So keep in mind how crazy, the crazy amount of numbers going down. Completely random. Both shots, 69 damage. We make the nice joke on the first one, and then the second one, everyone's too busy laughing, because this is absurd. But it was a fun time. It made for a fun finale. It made for a fun, like, going away moment. So one thing is I did like being able to play. Like, when we finished the campaign with Ward, I didn't really get to play with his level 20 abilities, because as soon as we hit level 20, we went to the final boss battle. Here, it was kind of the opposite. The game got dragged out. Like, a lot of Renard's story stuff was done at level 15, but we had to keep going. And then we hit 20, and then level 20 EX, and, like, all I could really do was fight, because my simple little forest boy was left out of all of the, like, big upper echelon talks we were having with, you know, leaders of nations and war generals, and, like, I'm a country boy that just learned to speak common, like, less than a year ago. I'm not going to have a place in this discussion. But, I don't know, no, he shined where I wanted him to shine. I think a big part of, like, Rangers getting a bad rap is just DMs forgetting to let them use their kit later in the late game, because forested areas and, like, things like favorite terrain and favorite beast, all of that kind of stuff just goes out the window in late game. So yeah, you typically don't get to do what the character can do. The other thing Renard was geared for was stealth. And thankfully, the DM did let me have a chance to actually do some stealthy stuff, even after getting level EX. So Renard also topped my record for stealth checks with a 40. Because with all of his skills built in, he had a plus 18 in stealth. If he's outdoors, thanks to his Fey camouflage, he would be able to get advantage on that roll. If his Cloak of Elvenkind was attuned at the time, anyone trying to spot him would have disadvantage on the roll. So, good luck spotting someone who rolled a 40 when you have to take the lowest roll you get out of 2. Have fun. Audible disgust from the entire party when I rolled that, by the way. Love it. It's fun. It was fun. The scary thing about the 320 damage, by the way, it should have been higher. Because I wasn't using my poison arrows that were an extra 3d6. I was 5 feet away from being able to add Hunter's Mark to the whole thing. It should have been over 400 damage. I should have been able to bloody this boss. Over 400 damage is enough to one turn most dragons in the game. And even the most ancient of dragons would be very bloody and probably one turn away from losing. He's a disgusting damage dealer. But that made him fun. Like, I think he did what he was built to do. Like, he managed to show that a ranger could be a really powerful character, albeit a little bit utilitarian. And eventually, yes, his tricks ran out, in the final fight. As the fight goes on, his tricks start running out, admittedly. But as a crowd sweeper, as early round DPS, oh, he turned out so well. He's the kind of character I would love to bring back in a different campaign just to see how a different DM handles everything. Because, like I said, like the Fox thing is built in by me. Everything else has to be built in by the DM. And I would love to figure out what another DM would think up for this. But For now, that is Renard. That is the most powerful ranger I know. Powerful enough to pilot a T-Rex if I really wanted to. We had magic feed that would have let us get our own dinosaur mounts. We never used it. I'm sad. Renard should have a raptor friend who Blaze would inevitably ride himself. But that might be for another adventure. So, that was Renard. That was Renard. Had a lot of fun with him. Admittedly dragged out late game, but you know that'll happen sometimes. Still fun. Still really enjoy. You'd be happy to know. A previous story mentioned like a town caught fire because they had a crush. They got together in the end. That was kind of like the final touch on both of their epilogues. So happy endings all around, and a happy ending to this story. So, I know it's a TJbletop, not the most popular videos, but if you watched, I do appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to my Tales on the Table. I'm playing a new character Thursday nights, 9 p.m. as a streaming game that you can watch over at the Goblin's Twitch channel every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot of fun with that character, too. I need to tell you about that character at some point. But for now, that was Renard. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I will see you next time.